standing outside the Ararat Park Hyatt Hotel in Moscow, and we're going to go for a walk today around the neighbourhood to see some of the artistic, architectural, historical treasures that are around this area. My name's Phoebe Taplin. I'm author of a series of walking guides to Moscow, and I'm going to take you for a walk around this area today.
That's good. Robbie, that's good.
So behind me here is SUM, the central department store. It was built by the architect Roman Klein, who also built the Pushkin Fine Arts Museum over on Volkonka. But the thing I really love about this shop is that it was founded by two Scottish entrepreneurs called Muir and Merrilees, and they brought it over from St. Petersburg in the 1880s, where they had their store before. And the thing that really attracted Archibald Merrilees was the friendliness of Moscow's expat community, which is also still true today. Apparently, he said in a letter, "A more hospitable set I never met with." And the other thing I love about it is that it was the playwright Anton Chekhov's favourite shop. He liked it so much that he called two of his pet dogs after the owners, Muir and Merrilees. We're going to find out more about Chekhov later on the walk this way. So this building here is the Moscow Arts Theatre, the Chekhov Moscow Arts Theatre as it became known later. And it was founded originally in 1898 by Konstantin Stanislavski and Vladimir Nemirovich Danchenko. The thing I love as well about this theatre is that it was designed by the architect Fyodor Shechtel. He redesigned this building, and he even made the theatre's logo, which is a seagull, after the first play, Chaika the Seagull, that Chekhov wrote, that was performed by this company. So this is the Resurrection Church. It's one of Moscow's many, many churches. It's a typical 17th century church with beautiful domes, with sort of Baroque window frames and all these lovely details of the gables. The bell tower, like so many churches, added in the 18th century. But the thing that makes this church really special was that actually it was one of the few to stay open right through the Soviet era. And so it's actually got some of its original decorations inside, like the iconostasis, which is the screen that divides the church, that has a lot of beautiful gold-backed icons or holy pictures in it. This street, Bryusov Pereulok, is also very nice for having a lot of musical associations. There's a brand new statue of Rostropovich right here, as we're going to go past that way and onto the Moscow Conservatory, which is the heart of a lot of the age-old musical traditions of Moscow. So this is the Moscow Conservatory. It was founded in 1866, and that was when Tchaikovsky started teaching here. He actually wrote Swan Lake while he was working here. And sure enough, in front of the building, you can see a big monument to the composer Tchaikovsky. The monument was actually made by the great Soviet monumental sculptor Vera Mukhina. She's most famous for an enormous stainless steel sculpture that's recently been re-erected near Vydyanka, the exhibition grounds in northern Moscow. And it's a famous sculpture of the worker and peasant girl lifting a sickle and a hammer into the air. This one is slightly less grand, but it's still quite monumental. As you can see around it, wrought into the fence, are notes from the composer's works. This is the Gorky House. I often feel as though this place has three ghosts. There's Stepan Ryabushinsky, the merchant who commissioned it, and there's the architect, Fyodor Shechtel again, who is the Art Nouveau architect of Moscow. This is one of his masterpieces, and you can see the waveform fence, the frieze with the orchids on, all kinds of lovely details. Ryabushinsky, who commissioned it, was a member of the sect known as the Old Believers, part of the Orthodox Church. Broke away from the Orthodox Church a long time ago, and at that time he wasn't allowed to worship publicly, but Shechtel built him a little attic chapel, and you can see the domed windows going up towards the chapel. The other person, of course, who lived here was Maxim Gorky, the writer. And this place was a kind of gilded cage for Maxim Gorky. He was an esteemed Soviet writer, and he was given this lovely house, but he wasn't really allowed very much freedom within it. So it was a place that he wasn't actually very happy. So there are these three different ghosts competing around this building. Just behind me here as well, you can see the church where the poet Alexander Pushkin got married. And up the road in that direction is the Patriarch's Pond. The Patriarch's Pond, when it was first created by Patriarch Job, was from a kind of swampy bit of land that was said to be haunted. And it still has some kind of supernatural connotations today. The writer Mikhail Bulgakov, who wrote the famous Master and Margarita novel, opens his novel right by this pond, where the devil suddenly appears in Moscow on a hot summer's day. The statue here is the early 20th century poet Sergei Yesenin. If he looks like a romantic figure, then he is. He loved wine, he loved women, and women loved him. He was married 5 times. He was married, for instance, to the ballerina Isadora Duncan, or even though he couldn't speak very much English and she couldn't speak much Russian, but he managed to write "I love you" in lipstick on the mirror. He was a bit of a tragic figure as well. He died when he was 30, committing suicide in a hotel in Leningrad, having written his final poem, "Goodbye, my friend, goodbye," in blood. The avenue we've been walking along is the Boulevard Ring. It's a big semicircle of trees around almost the whole of the city centre. It used to be the old white city walls that were dismantled in the time of Catherine the Great, and now it's a pleasant park in between the lines of traffic. Going on in that direction, you come to more monuments. You come to Rachmaninoff, the composer, and the Soviet-era bard, Vladimir Vysotsky. Turning left at that junction by Vysotsky, you come to the Hermitage Gardens. This is a beautiful place at any time of year, with ice rinks in winter and flowers in summer, and lots of theatres. It was there, in 1898, Nemirovich Danchenko and Stanislavski founded the original Moscow Arts Theatre. And it's still full of theatres today. The Novaya Opera has cheap and cheerful ballets. Going right at that junction, you come to one of those moments that I really love in Moscow, where you have the ancient monastery on one side, dating from the 14th century, and the Museum of Modern Art just across the road, full of funky installations and mosaics and sculptures. That's the thing that's really great about Moscow, discovering old and new contrasts right next to each other. I've loved discovering it. I hope you will too. So the walk ends here in this beautiful bar on the 10th floor of the hotel with a nice cup of tea or maybe a glass of champagne. You've earned it.